Since the dawn of mankind, humans have learned how to harness the earth, invented countless machines, and have obtained an almost unimaginable amount of knowledge about the universe. We've even learned how to fly. Yet, we all still struggle with the ultimate question. Is Hypixel Skywars actually good? Here's the thing. I realize that this game is mostly played by a younger demographic, but with Minecraft and subsequently Hypixel's sudden resurgence in popularity, well, I finally felt like I could talk about something relevant for once instead of reviewing games from 12 years ago. Anyway, just a little bit of context. Skywars is a game mode popularized by the Hypixel server. A basic game goes like this. 12 incredibly intelligent players start on separate floating islands with 3 loot chests with armor, weapons, and resources. They can then make their way towards the middle where there are chests with better loot. It's essentially just an arena PvP battle where you can knock people off the side of the map. Now, within the first 20 seconds of the game, take those 12 players and cut it down to 10, since at least 2 of them have already gone and fallen off the map all by themselves. You can also count out any players who've decided that they'd rather throw 4 stacks of snowballs from their spawn island instead of actually fighting anybody. The remaining players usually either duke it out around the spawn islands or at mid. Whoever wins the initial fight at mid usually gets all the good loot and wins, and whoever decides to hang behind usually has no chance in close quarters combat and decides to subject his opponent to 3 minutes of annoyingly passive gameplay.
Come out. Nah.
Of course, the last man standing wins. By killing other players, you can gather coins and souls, which can both be used towards unlocking kits and perks. Kits being items you spawn with, and perks being permanent upgrades that can give you massive advantages in the game. It all seems simple enough to understand, but here's where the first problem arises. Let's say I'm a new player to the Hypixel server, and I click on the game menu, and then hover over Skywars, and it says, Hypixel's take on the Skywars game mode, featuring the Angel of Death, Soulwell, and Insane mode.
Yeah, what the fuck does that mean?
On further inspection of the info portion of the Skywars hub, you do have this big sign which actually does help you understand what you're actually supposed to be doing, but you've still got this sign that says featuring the Angel of Death, which has absolutely nothing to do with gameplay. And then there's this part at the bottom which I love. You can use souls to unlock many kits and perks to improve your game experience. You know, because that just says so much right there. The problem is that clearly the game mode doesn't do a very good job of introducing itself. I mean, when you spawn in here, you've got like 700 different fucking things going on. You got the delivery man, the quest master, normal and doubles mode, which also seem to have 2 sub-modes in them. Ranked mode, mega doubles, the laboratory, duels, the shopkeeper, the in-game store, the info section, the leaderboard, parkour, the mystery vault, your profile, and this fucking thing. What am I supposed to do? The game gives you no guidance, no direction, and no instruction. You're just kinda thrown into this mess of a lobby and expected to figure things out. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's hard to figure out how to get into a game. I'm just saying that this lobby has its priorities completely out of whack and does a complete disservice to new players by failing to show them what is and what isn't important. The sign that says that kits and perks will improve your gameplay experience is one of the most hilarious understatements I have ever had the pleasure of reading. Now, kits really only matter very much in normal mode, but across both normal and insane mode, perks are undeniable game changers. Strength and regen after kills, chances for random gapple drops, no damage from ender pearls. This stuff would be borderline overpowered if it wasn't so easy to unlock. But the shopkeeper is pushed so far back in the lobby that you might not even ever notice he's there. And since the game keeps telling you to unlock things from the soul well, a random loot box kind of thing, you might not even know that you can just purchase those things from the shop. Why on earth is the delivery man put in a more prominent spot than the shopkeeper, who is 10,000 times more important? Just a quick little disclaimer before I get into talking about the gameplay. I'm going to be referring to the solo modes, because that's just what the majority of people play. I'm also not even gonna bother with doubles. It's the same amount of loot as in solo, but split between 2 players, so everyone dies in like 3 hits and everyone camps with bows for like 5 minutes. That's pretty much all you need to know. It's bad. Anyway, we can start off by talking about balance, and that's referring to how equal each player is when facing up against each other. The thing is, Skywars is inherently unbalanced because the equipment you receive at the start of the round is completely random, aside from any kit you have selected. So sometimes you get incredibly stacked, and sometimes you get incredibly fucked. Also, some people have certain perks unlocked that other people don't, which adds even more to the disparity between players. Now, games are made up of goals and incentives derived from those goals. So, for instance, if your goal is to reach the end of a level, you have an incentive to move forward. The game's goals are its way of pushing the player to do, and in most cases, have fun. Skywars is no different in this aspect. Your goal is to win, and therefore there's many incentives that come out of this goal. One of the most obvious is to go to mid, because the mid chests contain better loot that will give you a better chance of winning. This is an example of an incentive that encourages fun gameplay and interaction between players. On the opposite side, people can sometimes spawn in and get bows, and most everyone receives stacks of throwable items. So instead of incentivizing interaction, these random drops encourage a more campy playstyle, where you're more interested in trying to knock people off who are trying to get to mid, instead of actually going there and fighting yourself. Nothing is more annoying than having to deal with people who go this route. But the thing is, it's really not their fault at all. In their minds, it's the most optimal strategy, and it's hard for me to blame anyone for trying to win. In other words, the game is incentivizing a bad gameplay experience by giving out these items on spawn. The problem is, this kind of thing is pretty much associated with the game mode, which is unfortunate because people are incentivized to play the game in a much worse way than it could be. If it were up to me, I'd probably change it so that bows only spawn in mid chests, so that they can't be used for camping on spawn islands, and instead could have the opposite effect of, to a certain extent, being able to deal with people who won't approach. I would also make it so that you can't get more than 1 stack of eggs or snowballs in your chests, and probably have the amount as well. This is because I don't necessarily mind being able to get knocked off, but a fewer amount of these items would incentivize a much more strategic use of them. People bridging could effectively bait out shots, and people wouldn't just be able to spam them like they do now. Getting rid of these items completely would be far too big of a change, and would remove a lot of the intensity from the beginning of games. Anyway, sorry for getting all scientific on you. If you need a more basic explanation, essentially if you give people things that push people off the side, they have a chance of just going for cheap kills, and pretty much ignoring the PvP aspect of the game mode. Speaking of PvP, I don't know, man, it's just Minecraft PvP, you just kinda click fast, and sometimes they fall off the edge. Yeah. Here's something that is unique about this game mode: the kits and perks. First and foremost, I'll just quickly explain how they work. Like I said earlier, kits are something you can select before the start of a round that spawns you with certain items that can give you the upper hand in some situations. Perks are permanent upgrades that can give you massive advantages against your opponents. Both kits and perks are unlockable through the Soul Well and the Shopkeeper, although you will most likely never get anything you want from the Soul Well, so it's much better to just grind out some coins and just buy the upgrades yourself. Unlike kits, perks also have multiple levels that you can buy and max out. Okay, so with that out of the way, how does this affect the gameplay? Well, to start off, kits have much more of an effect in normal mode, since a lot of the loot in insane mode makes a majority of the kits obsolete. There are still some good ones for insane mode, but nothing that's going to carry you too far on its own. And of course, there are also your good amount of kits that are absolutely and utterly useless. Kits are pretty situational most of the time. There are certain maps that you might want to have an armored kit equipped, because there's a risk of being rushed, and other times you might want some extra utility like speed potions. It really just depends, and a lot of it's just personal preference as well. Perks are a little bit different. You don't just select one. Any perks you have unlocked are all automatically active at the same time. Now, in the same boat as in kits, there's a lot of these perks that I just couldn't give two shits about. However, there's a few perks that are pretty much must-haves when playing Skywars. You have Juggernaut, a way of automatically healing after kills, Ender Mastery, being able to rush people down with Ender Pearls without putting yourself at a health disadvantage, Savior, which grants you absorption hearts for a short time after kills, which helps to deal with people trying to clean you. And last but not least, Bulldozer, which is easily by far the most powerful perk that you can unlock. Its max level gives you 5 seconds of Strength 1, which allows for some of the most satisfying killing sprees. If you're pretty competent at the game, I wouldn't be surprised if this one perk alone would greatly boost your win rate. One of the biggest challenges new players face is dealing with people who come to clean you up after a fight. The Bulldozer perk takes great care of these losers, often allowing you to utterly destroy them in just a couple of hits. This is something that this game gets absolutely right design-wise. This perk allows for incredibly fun, aggressive play. If it were to not exist, there would be a much greater risk in making the first move in any fights, as you would just be putting yourself in a bad situation every time you go after somebody. In my opinion, the Bulldozer perk is one of the main reasons Skywars is as fun as it is. Each new game starts you on a random map. The ability to choose the map you play on is locked behind a paywall. And it's clear that not all of the maps are created equal. Some are much more fun to play on than others, simply because of how each map's design influences the way that people play. The maps have a very similar effect to the items in how they both create incentives for playing in certain ways. This is what makes the difference between good maps and bad ones. For instance, there are a couple of maps where your spawn islands are super far away from the middle, so anyone trying to actually bridge there is putting themselves at a huge disadvantage. Consequently, most of the time people just kinda do nothing for 2 minutes because there's too much of a risk of just being egged off. This is clearly terribly designed. Nobody wants to play a map where they feel at a disadvantage for being aggressive. You know you've got something seriously wrong when the map you've designed rewards people for camping instead of pushing. Or you know, at least I'd hope that the map designers would know that, but clearly they don't. But it's not all bad. I'd actually say that the majority of maps do a pretty good job of combining the hazardous void with plenty of space for more traditional PvP as well. In my opinion, the maps that do this the best are the ones where the spawn islands are very close to the middle islands. This allows for very fast pushes and rewards technical skill like water drops and block placing too. Combine this with plenty of space to fight and you've got yourself a very fun map. Now, I gave ranked mode a fair shot. I played like nearly 100 games on ranked mode. I won about a third of them. I think I got like number 1757. So I don't even think that's very good. I don't even know if that's even the gold rank. But regardless, the fact of the matter is my whole experience with ranked mode was pretty all-encompassingly terrible. People would just kind of run away the whole time and would never want to fight you because it was more advantageous to fight someone after they'd already fought someone else. So there was a lot of standoffs and it was just really annoying to play. I would not recommend this mode at all. In conclusion, Skywars is definitely a very flawed game mode, but even after nitpicking just about everything about the game, it is still undeniably incredibly fun to play. Skywars' saving grace is the fact that the games are so short and that you can queue up again almost immediately after you die. The perks add some fun chaos into the mix, and the PvP is classic and fun. So is Skywars good? Well, it's packaged with a bunch of bullshit, but if you can look past it, yeah, it's pretty good. As you can see, this man is slowly and steadily making his way over to the other island that has already been completely looted. He's taking his time as to make sure he does not make a mistake, as any mistake could be fatal.